Always wanted to say this. And we're back live on Tuesday, the 27th for PT Breakfast Club. This is a little bit like getting the class to help you with your homework. We're going to do some work today that'll help me with my job, which is kind of fun because marketing and sales and communications, it's sort of like doing it in public. You're allowed to do your work in public. In fact, it's encouraged. So we're going to dig into something that I'm doing there. And then we're going to talk about OTs in private practice. And I like this because this is a little bit out of the comfort zone because, I sort of know what an OT is, and you might know what an OT is, but what are they allowed to do? How are they similar and how are they different? And then we can go to the third, I call them cousins, the third cousin eventually of the rehab, which would be speech pathologists. Maybe we can bring them into the conversation eventually. But Dave's on vacation, but he's supposedly going to be here. I know Tony's here, so let's get started. Good morning, gentlemen. How are we doing? Wait, I need the music. We got to set the tone. There we go. There we go. Sort of like the little wake up. You got to have the jingle, gentlemen. Tony Maritato, Dave Kittle. Dave on vacation. Where are you? I feel like we should have a graphic like live from on location of. Where are you?
Where in the world is Dave Kittle?
You're in the beautiful, beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains in northwest Georgia.
So you're in Northwest Georgia and you're doing the complete stereotype thing, sipping coffee on a rocking chair. That is a very Northwest Georgia thing that I would think of if you said I'm in Northwest Georgia. Are you in front of a log cabin? Can you give us a complete shot there?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. You are living in a Lincoln log place.
Lincoln logs in full effect, human size.
That's cool. All right. So I'm glad you're with us on vacation, getting up bright and early. How's it going, gentlemen?
Awesome. Let's jump into it. Jimmy, you had something queued up that you took off the screen before we went live.
Did I? Which one? Which thing was I talking about?
You had a graphic. I couldn't see it.
Oh. I was talking about the APTA private practice thing.
You want to talk about it?
Yeah. All right. So I'll throw this on there. I thought this is a really good idea. And I love stealing good ideas because why wouldn't you love stealing good ideas? This is something I was dancing around with on the APTA private practice website. And I just thought it was a stupidly simple idea. And you're like, well, that's private practice. That's a private practice section. They're huge compared to me, a clinic owner. But this is just a really good idea. So this is the APTA private practice section's buyer's guide. And let's say Dave or Tony, you're a clinic owner and you are in the private practice section. What they've done here is they've sort of curated a list of people or products or companies that have said, like, we want to market, we want to be in front of clinic owners, your members. And instead of just everybody just sort of like trying to scream and yell over each other, private practice section was like, yeah, cool. Like, we'll put together a list and then we'll give everybody like this nice, neat amount of space. We'll give everybody a title and a link that you can go to these different things. So I'm actually surprised that there aren't more companies. I mean, I didn't count or anything, but I'm guessing around 20. So essentially, it's like an Amazon wish list, right? Built into the APTA's private practice section. And what they're saying, the thing you have to understand is, the private practice section understands that the product is the attention of their audience. Their product is the strength of their brand. And now you're on their website, it's sort of a blessing. And you've got that traffic. They understand where they are. If you're a private practice owner, some people, they know their numbers. I don't know what they are, but they're saying there are enough people coming to the site of this psychographic, not demographic, psychographic. Like, you do these things, these are your problems. And they're saying it's worth it to be on this guide. So I just thought it was a good idea of a good use of a website, right? A good use of website.
It is. Click on place an ad, that orange button in the middle. Can you? Or is this a picture?
Nope.
Okay. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, where's the pricing?
Yep.
Click basic listing.
I've got to be
guys, come on.
Classic.
I love the idea. I think it's great. I think it's going in the right direction. But, you know, I had an interesting situation yesterday. There is a company that I'll introduce here probably in the next week or so. This company was totally unrelated to APT or anything. It's just an experience I had that I'll share. They were introduced to me through a third party. They should have the technology for a solution that I've been looking for. I'm like, awesome. It's a startup, tech startup. They've got funding, you know, they're kind of new. I schedule a call. The whole call was kind of more sales pitch for investors, less like sales pitch to a consumer, even though I'm a consumer. And you know, I get it. They're new, they're practicing, they're trying to figure out what is going to resonate with me. But at the end of the probably 30-minute call, I'm like, okay, I get all that stuff. How much is it? I need to know the pricing. Like, I don't even know if I'm a big enough client that could even come on the platform. Doesn't matter how great your technology is. If I'm too small, we just wasted 30 minutes of both our time.
Right.
Now I had to book another call. That was yesterday. I have to book another call today, hopefully to find out pricing. But I'm like, why didn't I get pricing yesterday? You know, and this goes to that price transparency, and let's just weed out the people that are absolutely never going to be customers anyway. Dave, you're smiling. What are your thoughts?
So the first call was they were trying to get you in as an investor. Is that correct? They were trying to go after that Maritata money?
Well, that was kind of the pitch. It was directed at investors more than customers. But I was coming to them as a customer. Like I wanted to buy their service from what I understood. But I think they're just so in the mindset of VC funding and pitching to investors that they haven't switched the pitch to a customer pitch.
Right. So that can segue eventually. We don't have to jump now, but that's what I'm doing at my new role at Vestibular first, and we can talk about it. But it's the difference between B2B and B2C. And B2C, in my opinion anyway, it's you aim here at the heart, at the emotions, right? Like B2C, you'd be talking about what am I going to get out of this in terms of benefits? And then you can hit me with a list of features, benefits first, then features. The thing is, be really wary. And I've noticed this on websites, buying products and services online. It used to be you had to do so much digging to find a price. And now I think enough companies understand, don't mess with my time, because if I search and still can't find it, you're going to lose. I feel like a lot of websites have pricing there. And I think the scary part was, well, if you tell them how much it's going to cost, like they're going to run away. Okay, so maybe you're overpriced, right? Like people aren't dumb. If you're selling me something, is $1,000 too much? Well, I don't know. What are you selling? If it's a new car, no, man, show me that price. So I think it's funny. I think what you bring up is really valid, which is like, hey, let's say in the first 5 seconds of their pitch that you're like, damn, I'm in. How much? And that's hidden? Dude, that's a loss. That's not safe. That's risky.
And I think price is the single easiest communicator of value. If something is $10,000,
yes,
whether I believe it's actually worth $10,000 is a conversation for later.
Correct.
You as the company selling this product or service, if you want to convey, hey, this is a high value, very worthy investment, stick another zero on the end of your price, you know, because I can always buy something cheaper. Nobody's ever going to not find something cheaper or free or on YouTube or whatever. Right. But when I see Dave Kittle selling a $500 session, I'm like, wow, this must be incredible. I want to learn more about that. You know,
but we don't list pricing anywhere. We don't list pricing on our website or anything. We do it over the phone. So, I mean, maybe that'll change in the future. By the way, I got to post it soon. I was on a run and I was saying Tony Maritata is extremely wrong and incorrect about the AI new client onboarding and that we use humans. And anyway, that video will be coming out soon. But anyway,
awesome.
Sidebar.
The one axiom that I would like practice owners to keep in their head sort of sums up what Tony said, which is you determine the price, I determine the value. So if you're saying this is worth $1,000, no. Tony says this costs $1,000. I can tell you that this thing's worth what I'm willing. The value is $250. Therefore, we are incongruent. What you want to say is, hey, this is $1,000. The price is $1,000. I feel in my heart that it's worth $2,000. And that's when you get the meme from Futurama where the guy's just like, take my money. Like that is where the sweet spot. And I need to do a deep dive into that price versus value seesaw, because you're exactly right. Price is the easiest thing to manipulate. Watch, I can just go on the website, change the price. The price is lower. Communicating value, because remember, that's the harder thing to do. It's harder to measure. It's harder to quantify. But that's why big brands win. That's why people who don't even think about price win. That's why everybody listening right now. Oh, I can tell everybody who's watching live. You all have Amazon Prime. And it's not because of the price, because I think 90% of you don't freaking know it. If you know the price of your Amazon Prime right now to the dollar, put it below. I'd love to see it. But most
I have no idea. 125. I have no idea.
Right. It's because the value is so high, you're not even checking it. So if the value were a little lower every, couple months or every year when it came to re-up, you'd be like, did I get that out of that? So I think that's a good point, which is value versus price. So yeah, I think this is a good idea from PPS. I think a little bit good idea, C- on execution. Show me what it costs.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so do you think a simple fix, because let's be tactical. Maybe someone from PPS is watching. Buyer's guide. Look at the well-designed website. Here's the buyer's guide, right? Links, yada, yada. These look like all products and services that at least, oh, you know what I just noticed? Oh, watch this. This is kind of cool. This wasn't the order these ads were in a second ago. I'm going to refresh the page again.
Oh,
I think this shuffles the deck. So you're not just, it's not doing it now, but I thought a second ago that Eco Pro Pillow one was lower and now they're up higher. Yeah, I think it shuffles the deck, at least for the bottom ones. Anyway, but if you can't tell me really quickly, like what it costs, even if I got there as a potential customer, you lost me. I'm not going to take 20 minutes to dig through your website to create an account to do. I'm not going to.
But then again, ad sales usually is over the phone, right? That's kind of like a little bit of almost like enterprise sales. So they might want to get you on the phone.
You would hope, but I know this and I can't speak for all sections, academies, or companies. Very few actually have a dedicated sales or marketing person. Usually it's third partied out. So the person who did that, who created that website, so took the idea to execution, is done. And then they're like, well, we'll just put a link on there for people to give us money. How come there's not money coming in? Well, the idea is not good. No, it's because the execution's bad. But they don't know that because they don't run through their own processes, because you don't click through your own website enough.
So real quick, my guess is the basic listings cycle through, but the featured listings stay at the top, because I just went into an incognito browser and refreshed it. The top listings are still there, but the bottom listings are cycling. Let's get into Vestibular first. Let's talk about what you're doing there.
Yeah, Vestibular first. So Vestibular first is I call it just simply a healthcare technology company, right? Specifically aimed at rehab professionals who treat people with vestibular disorders. So people with all sorts of vestibular disorders. And there's a diagnostic tool. There are options out there. And I love the origin story, right? It's always fun to tell the origin story. It was a physical therapist, Helena, who works with patients with vestibular disorders, came home work and dropped on the couch. This is how I imagine it anyway. And was sort of like doing that thing you do with your spouse, which is like, this is such a pain in the ass. I want there are these products out there, these goggles, almost like the Oculus, that you put over your eyes and it knocks out all the light. And that's important, because when you knock out all the light, the eyes do something different. And she's like, but here's the problem. The low cost option is $700. It's just 2 magnifying glasses. That doesn't do enough. That doesn't block out light and yada, yada. And the high end option is like 15 grand. No clinic I work for is ever going to be able to afford that. And he is a tech dude, like websites, tech. He's the guy who can solder things and do all the things that I can't do. And he goes, well, what do you need it to do? And she just sort of vomited she needed it to do. And then he's like, hold my beer, and went to Amazon, just bought a bunch of parts. And then like 2 years later, they have an FDA approved medical device that does all the things of the $15,000 option for a middle of the road cost of $2,600. And that's what the Insight Pro Plus goggles are. Now, they sell these goggles B2C. So they got a great website. They've got really good SEO. They've got good paid and organic content. They got good paid. We're working on more organic content because that's where I come in. But they're like, here's the problem. Here's why we bring Jimmy on board, is we want to get into larger organizations, the larger PT chains, right? And hospital systems. How do we do that? Because that is B2B. That's not necessarily B2C. Well, I shouldn't say it's not ever B2C, because if you get in touch with a clinician who watches something or sees it or hears about it at CSM, hopefully she goes to her manager or he goes to the purchasing person and says, I want to use my budget for this. So that still is a route of B2C. But I get brought in because, how do we get the I don't want to name any of these practices, but like, how do we get some of these large practices to come in and say, okay, we want to order 10 or 20 or 50 of these because we can see if we arm our vestibular PTs with this, again, B2C is heart, B2B is logic and brain. This will help us make more money, differentiate us, bring in patients we weren't bringing in before. And that is my role there. I get to talk to people all the time.
So we were talking about this a little bit yesterday on chat. I'm curious to hear what Dave's perspective is. One of the things that I had said, and I see this across multiple situations. So like a therapist who wants to go in and do work site, ergonomics. They're like, I know I can save you money, the company. I know I can reduce injuries. I can lower workers' comp costs, all that kind of stuff. These are all theoretical savings. They're really hard to sell. Wellness programs, all these different things. So in Jimmy's case here, we're talking, okay, I had suggested, if you're trying to get into larger companies, hospital-based systems, things like that, even with HippoScribe, trying to go into a hospital-based organization, Jimmy had acknowledged, like, who's the contact person, who's the decision maker, in those kinds of organizations, it's really less about like bringing in awesome stuff. And it's more about not rocking the boat. Correct. When I worked for a hospital, it wasn't about hiring the best therapist. It was about hiring the therapist that doesn't disrupt the organization and cause problems because they're better than everyone else. I would rather hire an average or below average therapist who's just going to do the job and not cause problems. Yep. So when we're looking at bringing something like this in, it's like, all right, well, what does this all mean? Is this really going to make me more money? All of my vestibular therapists are already fully booked. They're already making as much money as they're going to make. Is this going to open the door to turning an hour of vestibular rehab into $1,000 revenue instead of $150 revenue? I don't know. I don't know it well enough. But most of the time when I look at introducing an opportunity like this, that we all look at and we're like, oh, this is awesome. It's going to do this stuff and attract more new patients. They're typically like, we don't need more new patients. We already have a waiting list. It's not going to generate more billable units because we're using the same CPT codes. In fact, when I talked to Biodex Rehab about their reactive step trainer, they wanted to bill 97112 for using this balance device. I was like, here's the problem. I'm not a neurotherapist. I can bill 97112 today with rubber bands. That cost me 50 cents. Why do I need to buy an expensive treadmill to build the same CPT codes? And that's the thing with this device. So the real situation here is, where is the truly unique advantage of bringing this in outside of the theoretical? Yes, it's a better experience. Yes, it gives our therapists a new tool that they don't already have. Right. What do you think, Dave?
I love that approach. The one thing I was thinking, since we chatted about it yesterday and then into today, with APTA, is there like a special interest group? Is there like one of those SIGs or whatever for vestibular, just for vestibular? I'm assuming there probably is, right?
Yeah,
national.
Within the APTA neuro section, there's vestibular. Yep.
So I don't know if that's got to be, I don't know what, hundreds, if not thousands of therapists right there. So like, maybe if is there a way to either you guys interview them all, create a bunch of content, paid placement, ads, whatever, that go out to all the vestibular therapists. I think that would be maybe one of the things for like the best bang for your buck. But like Tony said today and yesterday in chat, like the device has to show a private practice owner how it can help. Obviously there has to be the financial side, and it's got to be, there's like the functional side as well, of like a therapist that is currently doing, I don't know, like the Dix Hall Pike or whatever, right, and whatever vestibular diagnostics. Are they currently doing it with the other, cheapy goggles? Are they doing it without any goggles right now? And so that sometimes is the challenge of bringing something like this into any business that's like a little bit more expensive. There's more overhead. And then it's like, we got to make sure obviously that it's being used and like, what's the actual financial return on it? And then like all the other nuance around, training and onboarding and making sure that your therapists are actually, the vestibular therapists are actually going to use it and continue to use it and have some patient, some patient improvement. And then maybe you use those goggles to send a video to the referring ENT or whatever, physician, all that. Like that's got to be like, there's multiple things. I don't think it's just one, channel. There's like multiple things to figure out.
All right. So this feels very much like Shark Tank, and I'm like getting all sweaty because I got to answer all these questions from the sharks. So they did a sort of analysis where they had an organization give this tool to 11 different therapists. And they found out that it pays off in about 11 weeks. So they said, hey, listen, using this, we can show anyway that it pays for itself in 11 weeks. The thing that I think it sells, I think, Dave, you hit on it last. Because I studied vestibular therapy for 29 minutes, I think, in PT school. We blew right through it in neuro, right? Because if you don't have a neuro professor who's an expert in it, you're going to get the bare minimum, right? And knowing that this is a niche market, but I think it's an underserved market, and they've got the data to prove that, right? So the last thing that Dave said, I think, was really valuable, which is if you're looking down at someone's head, remember what it was like to do like a Dick's Hall Pike, you're doing it on your classmates, like you know what the heck you're doing. You're looking for this. If you want your professor's insight into, hey, is that a nystagmus? They have to be right on top of you. So I think this product actually sells two things that we're not talking about. Number one, putting the patient's eyes in the dark gives you different results. Except I don't know about you guys, but I'm not, Wolverine from X-Men. I can't see in the dark, right? So this puts patients' eyes in the dark, but still allows you to let you see them. So number one, it gives you the superpower of night vision. These are night vision cameras, okay? So that's number one. You're going to get a better result. Is that worth $2,600 to a hospital system? I don't know. Let's let them decide. The second thing it does is your professor doesn't have to be over your head. So number one, I can record with these things. So I can do the maneuver and then record what it's doing. So low-hanging fruit, I can show the patient and say, see what I'm seeing? And this is what I've heard from Helena and other vestibular therapists, there's validation there. Oh my gosh, there actually is something wrong with me, because you know what vestibular disorders look like? Nothing. Like you and I just look at someone and just go, oh, you just keep saying you feel dizzy, but I don't see, there's nothing bleeding, there's nothing visible. So it's validation. The second level is you can send it to a therapist that you know who's an expert, and go, you can send the video clip with permission to someone and go, here's what I think I'm doing. Here's what I think I'm seeing. Do you see that as well? And this is like another nice feature I don't think I mentioned. Yes, it's got two cameras that are night vision in the goggles. It allows the webcam you're recording on to record the maneuver. So you can actually see where in the maneuver, because it's got play-by-play now, where in the maneuver the eye did that thing. And the third thing that David just keyed on, now you can send it to maybe a referring physician and say, hey, you were right to send that patient to me because look what I found and look what I am. So I think it's a differentiator. It's an option for a differentiator.
And so remind me, are the goggles a diagnostic tool or are they a training recovery tool?
They're a diagnostic tool for now.
Okay. Because you had said at one point that consumers were buying them. Like
No, these are not a consumer tool. This is a diagnostic tool only. Sorry if I didn't answer that right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these goggles, and I've got a pair right off camera, but hook up to a laptop and essentially just give you a camera view of each eye, and then you would take the person through an evaluation, and that is the money ball of what these things are. Because you can't see a lot of these things especially if you're a new clinician, at the speed. And then, are you sure? Because now, again, I have a PT license. I'm on my own. I even thought about an additional service to this would be like a tutor, like have someone like Helena. I know I'm pimping out her time without her actually here. Hey, like send it in and say, with permission, what are you seeing here? And now it's like this tutor sort of service, which is like, hey, like I'm on call, like your Clarity FM,
right?
Like, I'm there to give you my insight, but ultimately it's on your license and yada yada. So I think the two things that stood out to me was night vision and the ability to freeze and rewind time.
Well, again, this goes to like looking at the technology, looking at opportunity, especially with a new landscape with video and synchronous communication. I had pitched the idea years ago where I'm like, if there is a great McKenzie certified therapist or a great pelvic floor therapist or a great whatever vestibular therapist, I should, instead of going to some random CEU course, I should be able to just bring that therapist into my evaluation, bring them into my clinic. It's still a billable event under me, but I'm learning as I do the evaluation. So something like that, I buy the goggles. Along with that, I get access, whether it's a paid membership or whatever, to somebody who's well trained in it, and they're training me as I'm using it with my clients. I just see tremendous value in that, rather than let's get together for a weekend and let's do a CEU and then we're going to forget 90% of it once we leave. Yeah.
You come off hot on Monday morning after that course, and then everything's great. And then I bet you, like, a couple days later, you're like, a YouTube video is great, but if I'm staring at my house and my front door, and I saw the video on how to, hang a front door, but now mine's slightly different, having that person standing next to you, even if, like, it's almost like a handyman, even if the handyman wasn't there to do the work, you're like, I'm capable, I'm willing. Just tell me I'm doing it right. Confidence and competence is actually what you want to sell.
So something that interesting happened. I was talking to a patient in my clinic today, female, mid-50s, diagnosed with pretty significant osteoporosis. And she was just devastated, emotionally very upset. Can't believe that she was diagnosed with osteoporosis to this degree. I connected her with a therapist who's got a great YouTube channel. The two of them have been talking, but she spent about 6 months, went through like the Kubler-Ross stages, denial and anger and all that stuff. Anyway, a wellness thing comes to town. They have a different technology for measuring bone density, bone quality. Well, based on this assessment, her bones aren't that bad. So now the question is, did she get a bad DEXA scan?
Right.
Or did, what's going on? Again, with a device like this, are they doing anything? Because if it's a diagnostic, are they doing something where the therapist goes, does an event either locally or part of a wellness, fair, and they just line up 20 vestibular individuals who want to get an assessment. They do the diagnostic, and then they refer out to local clinics in the area.
Yeah. That's a good idea. So not right. That angle, no. That program, no, not right now.
Because we used to do something with a metabolism tester. We would do, $100 per assessment. You breathe into this little device. It measures resting metabolic rate. They pay us there, and then we would refer out to the personal trainers or the local people that wanted to work on weight loss and weight management.
Here's one of the reasons why not yet. And this is a stat that I got from Helena and Patrick, which is the person who's living with dizziness usually sees 6 to 7 providers until they find the right one. Dizziness is so ambiguous. Where do I go? The average person barely thinks of a PT for many of the things PTs can do. This is maybe not one of them. So that is, again, it comes back to education and communications and marketing, is like positioning yourself as the right provider who can get me to the right solution. Scott is dropping in the comment, same kind of idea would work for MSK ultrasound. It's funny that he says that, Scott, we're on the same wavelength. I was thinking the same thing, which is you have all these MSK ultrasound devices and practitioners now saying, hey, I have insight. I can, Vestibular First has the ability to see in the dark and freeze time and allow you to stop and rewind time, right? MSK ultrasound lets you see through walls or body walls, in this position. What can you do with that superpower? Is the juice worth the squeeze? If you have the superpower and you know how to use it, how can you leverage that to help more people? I think it's there. I think the person who finds out how to do it the best first, most effectively with the least amount of friction wins.
Let me ask you real quick. Go ahead, Dave. Go ahead.
So really quick on the MSK diagnostic ultrasound, I'm glad Scott mentioned this. So we use the Butterfly IQ. There's a way with the app. It's so simple. The imaging or the Butterfly, the probe, the device plugs right into my iPhone. You can send an image and a video right from the app. to other clinicians. You could send it to another therapist. You could send it to a colleague and say, hey, I'm seeing this. What do you see? Whatever.
Yeah.
And another thing is that there's a lot of physical therapists, and especially there's a lot of physicians on Instagram who share diagnostic ultrasound imaging, pictures and still images. They'll post almost like a case study. And in the comments section, other physicians chime in as to the diagnosis and what they see.
Oh, yeah.
So,
it's a brilliant social strategy.
Exactly. So I mentioned here in the private chat, you guys can't see it publicly, but I said, talking about Butterfly IQ, and maybe Vestibular First could do something like that, where you get a bunch of vestibular therapists that are trying the goggles on, or they bought the goggles, whatever. If they're able to do, I don't know if the device is able to do that, but if you're able to have still images or videos from the goggles,
100%.
You have those therapists tagging, you could do a challenge, you could do a giveaway, whatever, but posting these images on their own Instagram and Facebook or YouTube or wherever. And of course,
with
it's,
permission.
With permission, or not. These are anonymous. These just be anonymous patients, or you do, therapists, whatever. And then you post on social media, and then they're tagging at Vestibular First, or, your social media account or website.
Patrick and Alina are in France at the Baronet conference, which is like a big international conference with people who work with, people with vestibular disorders right now. But I've been taking notes because they've been gone for a week or two, and I have the dry erase board full of all those things. And you touched on one of them. If you go to Vestibular First socials, they have a really good active social following. Alina puts up treatment ideas and discussions that vestibular therapists would want to have. She's got that covered. That is the lowest hanging fruit, and they do that, and they do it terribly well, right? What you don't see, and this is Helena, if you're watching, Patrick, if you're watching, I don't see nearly enough night vision videos. Like, you have the ability to see in the dark.
The actual product.
Night vision video every 24 hours of something. So that is the lowest hanging fruit. So that's going to be in our marketing meeting when you guys get back from the Baronet conference, which is, don't tell me that you're a night vision goggle set. You're not. You are the ability to see in the dark. That is what you sell. How you do it is a night vision camera in a goggle set. What you sell, what the value is. I can see in the dark easily, simply at the turn of a button. Absolutely. So we're going to see more night vision videos, Helena. That's what we're going to do.
I will say, though, as a non-vestibular therapist, those like night vision, people's nasty eyes, that grosses me out.
I know, but good. I don't want you. You are not my people. So like,
totally true.
This brings up the stupid business model of the woman who's now a millionaire, which is Dr. Pimple Popper. That is disgusting. And
for a lot of people.
Millions of people, and it is like eye candy, and it's like like just people watching and it's popping. So it's like, dude, that's great. Like, but for vestibular therapists, that is eye candy, and they love. They can all see these things.
Pun intended.
The Matrix, where Neo's looking at the ones and zeros on the screen in the green, and he just sees ones and zeros. Vestibular therapists, well, you and I, we look at it, it's just ones and zeros. Vestibular therapists see right through it, and they can see the matrix. It all makes sense to them.
So another interesting question, and I'm sure they've explored all of these. We're geeking out on it. Since it's a diagnostic tool, okay, so I go in for an x-ray, right? There's an x-ray technician who does the x-ray, but then there's a radiologist who reads the x-ray and develops the report. Does it need to be a clinician? Not if it's cash pay. Does it need to be a clinician who actually has the goggles, who actually does the testing itself, not interprets the test or anything else, just is physically there with the person doing the test?
That's a good question. Helena's going to answer that. I'm going to say, my gut reaction as the PT who works in sales, but is never treated vestibular. I'm going to say it does, because there's a lot of nuance into when things come on. Because I went to clinic with Helena for an entire day and watched this. And that is the other option, right? I'll do a live stream where we put the goggles on and you can essentially see each eye individually, but you can also see what's going on in the room. So you could, while you're recording each eye, you're recording the clinician and the patient from across the room with the camera all in one shot. So when things happen, vestibular therapists chime in here to help me make sure I'm not an idiot. When things happen and when they come on is terribly important. So I'm going to say yes, that is part of the, I would say yes. My answer is that's part of the skill. Could you
Okay,
treat?
'cause what
Are you saying could you treat a PTA to do this as well? Is that what?
heck
Or
no, I'm saying, can I get a great person
Like
with a
like an
great
X-ray tech,
personality? Huh?
but an X-ray
like
tech
like
has
X-ray, a little
Yeah,
bit of
like what
training.
some, you know.
why can't I just get a human who's got great social skills, who's, looking for a job like this? There's a lot of like people moving into non-medical companion care that are
Correct.
just doing phenomenal. Why can't I get somebody like that? If I was a vestibular therapist sitting here behind my computer, I could have 3 or 4 of these individuals out in the field and just book them on house calls. They go, I'm live. I'm there with them. I can tell them if they need to do something or change something or whatever.
Oh, I see what you mean. Got it.
Yeah, so you can still have the therapist element there, but that individual would be trained by me, trained by Vestibular First, trained by somebody, but they're effectively the technician who out in the house with the patient and the patient's
Right.
family, boots on the ground, but I am the one here. And like I said, I could have 8 to 8:20 at that house, 8:20 to 8:40 at this house, 8:40 to 8 to 9 o'clock at the next house. And as I'm hitting the next one, that first person leaves to go to the third or fourth visit.
So what you're really doing is you night vision, see in the dark, the ability to freeze time, and now you have the ability to see miles away virtually. So essentially extending the vision of a therapist. I'm going to change my answer and say, ooh, maybe not. Right. And you also said something else, which is a Vestibular First certification. And I know everybody and their mom is like, I do certifications and kind of courses. Before I took this job, I was trying to find a reason not to work for Vestibular First. So I asked, again, not a vestibular expert, but I asked a bunch of people who I respect and knew personally, knew well enough to tell me the truth and not just what I wanted to hear. Couldn't find a person to say a bad thing about not just the company, because that's inanimate, Patrick and Helena. So people trust her and Patrick because they do the right thing. So I don't know this, because that answers a lot of the different questions, which is how is this going to make me money, which is something therapists with Peace Corps disease or the Peace Corps gene, you'll hear in an upcoming episode. I think that was Scott Dickinson with Next Level. PT's just got this Peace Corps gene, man. We want to do everything. And we've talked about just last week where if you can get some of that, if this is an emotional thing, right? This is an emotional thing. The emotion sometimes blocks the logic. So I'm going to change my answer to maybe. And that is an idea I didn't think of.
So now what happens is that turns a single clinician, owner operator, small provider into somebody who's going to buy 4 devices instead of 1.
Because now they're maths.
Yeah.
Even better. The maths faster. I do want to mention they do create educational models, and I see how many people are buying these things. This is a need that they are fulfilling that was not fulfilled previously. We're talking about like
I have headpiece thing.
Yeah, like the headbands. You saw that picture, because that is the alternative was like we did it in PT school with like pipe cleaners. You like made it pipe cleaners. You did this. This has like actual like fluid in it to show you the speed of the crystals and things like that. So for vestibular therapists, it's a little bit teaching the teacher, but it's a lot teaching the patient. So it's a really great model to have in clinic to show like, why am I having you hold your head for 45 seconds or a minute and a half? Why is it taking so long? So, all right. What do we want to jump to next? Well, let's talk about OT.
Yeah, because this leads right into OT. So yes, last week, somebody had asked us about OTs going independent, OTs going into private practice. What are the opportunities? What's the landscape? And one of the things that I always think about is, OTs are kind of an interesting breed. I asked ChatGPT before we came on, I'm like, what does an OT do? What's the definition of an occupational therapist? How's it different than physical therapist?
What did it say?
Huh?
What did it say?
Nothing spectacular. It said
was its answer super ambiguous too? Because
let's see. So OTs are healthcare professionals helping individuals of all ages develop, recovery, and maintain skills needed for daily living and working. Yeah. Unlike physical therapy, I thought this was going to be interesting. Unlike physical therapy, which primarily targets physical mobility, occupational therapy emphasizes enabling people to perform meaningful activity, quote, occupations that are necessary or desired for their daily lives.
This is it's amazing to me how we have two different professions that are still in existence for this long, and nobody, a PT and OT, no one can explain the difference. Like, well, like using that definition from AI, meaningful occupations of daily living. I don't know, man. Walking feels pretty meaningful to me, but I don't
Well,
know.
that's the thing. Like any PT that I talk to, everyone's about functional training. But
Right.
OTs are supposed to own the functional world,
Function, right.
sit to stand and bed mobility and all this kind of stuff, all the way through work function, leisure function, whatever. But every PT will say we focus on function. We focus on regaining function.
All right.
So whatever, people have their arbitrary definitions between the two. What I think is unique, though, I do think there is more of a perception that the general population understands what physical therapy does, whether it be hot packs, cold packs, massage, dry needling, whatever. I do think there's a little more understanding of PT in the general population. I think OT is, just so unknown that gives them the opportunity to come in with unique service offerings that the consumer doesn't even know. So it's like PTs are pigeonholed into, well, I'm a physical therapist. This should be going through insurance. OTs can come at it. There are a lot of OTs getting into mental health. There are OTs getting into all sorts of stuff. And I'm like, look, I wouldn't even mention I'm an OT. I would look at a problem that is worth solving, that the consumer has the money to pay you to solve. And then I would just create a solution for that problem. The fact that I'm an OT doesn't even come into the equation.
You wouldn't
I would
list
just
any
get
of your
out
letters?
there and I would start solving expensive problems for people who have the money to pay for it. And then on the side, if I want to help those people who can't afford me, then I'll do it for free, because I still believe that an OT going out and doing $100 house call, you might as well just do it for free. $100 is not going to be enough money for you to pay your mortgage, pay your loans, do all the other stuff. Focus on people that'll pay you $500 to have a vestibular first headset and come out there if you're a vestibular OT and do the diagnostics and treat that person. And then with the extra money you make from that, just go help the other people for free. Do it to fulfill yourself. Do it to fill your tank. But that's where I think the OT's unique advantage is they are so unknown. They shouldn't even mention that they're an OT because immediately that throws you into the insurance category. Yeah. Just be like, hey, I've got special training. I'm uniquely qualified. I am going to solve this problem in a different way.
It's that,
and then you go out and do what you do best. What?
It's that grunt test, right? The 3 questions that everybody's asking when they look at anything, any of those things. What do you do? How does it make my life better? What do I need to do to get it? At no point do I need to know your certifications. The certifications are implied. So what do you do? How does it make my life better? You're sort of asking, like, do I think you can actually do this? Like, do I think this is actually going to happen? We've all been exposed to claims that we're like, that's not going to work. I've been suckered. We've all purchased on something on Temu, right? When we get it in the box, and we're like, this is not what was on the brochure. This is not the thing. So we're always doing that. At no point, this is where people get distracted when they're saying, like, well, I can't wait to tell you that I went to school for 7 years to become a doctor of physical therapy, or I went to school to become an OT. If it's not advancing the plot, don't have it in the movie. I think I've brought this up with you guys before. You guys have both, you're in the Rudy era. You've seen the movie Rudy, right?
Sure.
What did Rudy go to college for? What was his major?
I don't even remember.
History? I don't know.
It wasn't in the movie. Want to know why? Because it wasn't important. So they didn't bring it up. That's my point, is like, you being an OT is, if you ask, I will tell you that. But don't put it in the movie because it's going to distract you from the point. The point was he was 5'0", 100 and nothing, and he's playing football with the best football team in the land. That's what the movie was about. He went to college for something, but stop mentioning it unless it's asked.
So,
right?
so Tony, what would be a couple examples of $500 worth of house calls? So, like a full home assessment, right? So, like, now here's the thing. I've done a ton of house calls, as you guys know, over the years, and a lot of people, you say this light needs to be brighter, this rug needs to be rolled up and moved, and then my pages in New York City, they're like, oh, it's like a $10,000 rug, it's not moving, it's staying there, right. So like, what are some ideas for OTs out there to offer a $500 house call? It's got to be like a whole, vestibular first goggles. It's got to be like, balance, dizziness, vertigo assessment, and game plan or whatever. Like, what are some other ideas for OTs out there to have kind of like a premium home house call offering?
Well, that's the thing. So it depends on the OT, obviously, and what their niche is, what their
Sure.
specialty is, what makes them unique. If we were looking at an OT who wants to do vestibular stuff, like there are plenty of people who will pay $500 for you to come out when mom is, experiencing an acute episode of vertigo and they don't know what to do. And she's puking in a trash can and they need somebody to come help her right now. Like that's a minimum $500, probably could
Sure.
be even higher in a place like New York. I've talked about OTs going out when it's a non-emergency fall. Paramedics, firefighters, they're making constant calls for patients who are on the ground, can't get up, but it's not an emergency. And I know patients who are in my practice who will sit on the ground till the next day when their son can come over because they don't want to call the paramedics or firefighters, even though they know it's free, they don't want to bother them. But if there is somebody that they could pay to help get them off the ground, and then of course that leads into, well, this is going to happen again. It's happened 3 times this month. Let's figure out a way to either minimize the chances of this happening or prevent it completely. OTs that are, I know a couple OTs that are getting into technology and they're like, they want to help geriatrics better understand technology. Maybe they're going to come in and set up a, system within the home that helps them connect the TV to FaceTime so they can communicate with friends and family, go to that leisure and enjoyment aspect of OT. Coming in for something like that, it's not a covered service under Medicare. Easily a $500 to $1,000 house call. You actually do the technology integration and show the client how to do it. But the idea is I'll pay $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 for a one-time thing more than I'm likely to probably pay $700 for a 24 visit plan of care.
Right.
So where is the real value? Where is the real pain point? And then again, who am I trying to sell that to? Why would I try to sell $750,000 consultation to somebody who can't afford putting food on the table?
Right.
Like it just makes no sense. But if I want to help that person, let me do it from a place of abundance so I don't have to charge them anything, because that person, even $5 is going to be too expensive for them.
Right. I did an interview. I'll try to find it, but it was a husband and wife duo. He was like a licensed general contractor and she was a physical therapist, and they did this. They were in Texas. I'll find that eventually. But essentially it was like she comes in and does a home modification evaluation, says you need grab bars here and here. It can't be here because that's too high. It can't be here. But then the person's going, cool, I don't know how to do that. Like, where do I buy? They just go, there's my husband. He knows what bars because he's my husband and I tell him, and then he puts them in, and you've gone end to end. And then I was looking for the episode that I did with that husband and wife. I can't remember their names. I believe they're out of Texas. And I came across this. I hate their website, but I love their business model, which is 2 therapists. Look, he's holding a drill. It tells me everything sort of I need to know. I want to see more pictures. I want a bigger picture like this. But they do that. They create safe home living environments for families in New Jersey. So this is, I'm guessing anyway, this is my split-second decision is your mom or dad has a stroke. They're coming home. They would like to be independent. You as a son or a daughter are like, that's cool, but I don't want to find my mom or my dad on the floor when I come visit them next morning. They're like, we got you. We're going to make this area safe for you. Cause I'm like, I don't know what to, I know it's rugs and lights and grab bars. Oh my, where do I put these things? They're like, we got you. We come in with different eyes and a drill. That's the thing, is you have to complete the solution, right? So that's what I would say is, but if you can't, find a contractor in town and be like, hey bro, do you want to team up with me on this and see what we can do? Because I think it's a problem that people have every single day.
So, and then even just stepping back from that, and home mods is just one aspect of this, but like Sue Doyle does a lot with home mods. She had interviewed, I think, a real estate agent, and then she might have even interviewed a builder. But like, I don't know if you remember, Dave, right now you're sitting in a vacation like a Vrbo or Airbnb or something like that, right? Think about this. What if you wanted to bring your mom or dad to that vacation rental? I was in Hilton Head. I grabbed my phone. I went around this Hilton Head oceanfront home. I was like, look, here are the pros, here are the cons. These steps aren't marked. They're like raw coral, like they're going to trip a geriatric. There's no handrail. An OT, if they wanted to go that direction, could reach out to all of those vacation rentals, could just fly to Hilton Head, go through all of the houses, like walk through them, do an evaluation, do an assessment. That would be something that helps sell that house. They could do ADA compliance for like what needs to go where, recommendations on it. There are OTs getting into travel right now. They're doing travel for individuals who need extra help. It's an amazing niche. I think they have a certification that they're releasing or have released for that.
Smart.
It's mind-blowing how many opportunities are out there that we don't even know. We're not even aware about. It's not on the radar, but obviously conversations like this allow us to get the information out to the community.
This is a buddy. I just saw this because I got my, college alumni magazine. This is a guy I actually graduated with. He was on the swim team. And I think his degree was like PE or something. And he started this organization called Ocean Cure, oceancure.org, nonprofit organization out of Carolina Beach, North Carolina. And they provide increased beach accessibility. So you've got someone who can't go in the ocean, but you want to go to the shore, but that person's going to be like, Imagine you were able to just be like, I'm on site. I will make sure this person can go into the ocean safely because I have the tools and the knowledge. Can you get me to the outcome? I don't care what you know. That's where that cliche, I love beating up on that cliche. No one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. No, they don't. What they care about is, can you help me solve my problem from end to end? Not just tell me about a solution or send me a link to a YouTube video about the solution. Can you walk me from problem to the ocean? Can you get me from Kansas to chest deep in the water? And if the answer is yes, that's worth something, people. And you know where people want to go into the beach, where you'd find those people? At the beach. Go live at the beach. So find the problem and work backwards.
And in my opinion, none of this requires a certification. Like, no offense to the group or the association out there doing these. Like Jimmy just talked about an experience, like going to a beach, even if you don't even go in the water, if you have some handicap, disability, movement impairment, even if you're on the sand, like that's mostly like you're still at the beach, right? And then Tony talked about previously we talked about, and Tony definitely talked about the travel aspect, like going on like taking a patient or a client to a round of golf or some other experience. And Jeremy Sutton is promoting and trying to do some of that. And then even travel, like Tony just said, folks traveling, like you as the OT or the PT or whoever, like you can basically get like kind of like free vacations, right? Because you're not going to like pay, you're going to charge a figure, but that includes like your time, your travel, lodging, meals, all of that. Like you can basically travel the world for free with this type of an idea. And again, this is outside of the constraint of covered service and insurance and all that.
That's like that movie with Kevin Hart and Bryan Cranston, right? But is there a model that exists? Sure. If you're a family going on vacation, you got young kids, you always look for the niece or the nephew to want, hey, you want to come on vacation with me? And you watch because we want to go out to dinner twice in the week and you get to play with the kids and put them to bed. Look for the plot problems first. Stop trying to jam your solution into holes, right? Look for the big giant chasms that already exist and ask yourself, which ones could I solve simply? And which ones would I like to solve frequently? And which ones can be solved over and over again?
So taking this 180 degrees and going the opposite direction of what most OTs and PTs would want to do, but absolutely could be doing. And I don't know why I feel like New York City is like a prime breeding ground for something like this.
What do you got?
Have you ever heard of attorneys sending the ADA demand letters to local businesses who are not ADA compliant?
I have not heard that, but yeah, I could see that in New York City. Absolutely.
Okay. So here's the deal. So an OTPT would go in, you'd go into the bodega, you'd go into the sandwich shop, you'd go into whatever, you'd go into the bathroom, you'd look under the sink, non-ADA compliant. Oof. You'd go tell your partner attorney, send this guy a letter. The attorney sends the letter saying our client was in your establishment. It's not ADA compliant. We expect whatever restitution, blah, blah, blah. Oof. They're getting thousands to hundreds of thousands in quote restitution on some of these cases. And it's legitimate. I mean, it's not really a scam because these businesses are so busy. They're mom and pop businesses. It's a horrible thing to do, but they're not ADA compliant and they're not abiding by the law. So we were in a situation like this, and that's the only reason why I know it, where something like this happened in one of my mom's nightclubs decades ago. We got a demand letter for $100,000+. We negotiated it down to 10,000 just to like not go through the litigation. Wow. But imagine that for nothing other than walking into this business and realizing that something in the bathroom wasn't ADA compliant, an attorney and a person got $10,000 out of my mom's business. That's it. Wow. You know, and we still had to pay the cost to bring everything up to compliance.
Yeah. There's putting your skills. I mean, you want to talk about the Peace Corps, Gene. Okay. Why don't you go out there and fight the people?
The opposite side.
Yeah. It's like, okay, great. You're the private investigator, but instead of investigating people who are cheating the system or cheating on their spouse, you're going out and you're doing proper evaluations for ADA compliance. Do you need a certification to do that? No. Do you need to know the regulations? Sure. Could you teach yourself that in a day? Absolutely. Could you do it in 4 hours with AI? Most likely. And yeah, I mean, and that, so essentially you'd freelance for attorneys and say, here's a thing that should be happening. I can write on a piece of paper my certifications. This is where you get to flex and tell people, I'm certified according to a doctor of physical therapy. It was analyzed and measured, and these were the photos. Yeah, I mean, that's a model.
Now, I think you could do it in a more ethical, like feel good, sleep good at night way, in the sense that you could be the therapist going in, doing these assessments, then sending a letter to the business owner and saying, hey, I just want you to know this is what I do. This is my specialty. I was in your establishment. This is what's going on. These are the deficits. Absolutely. If an attorney has somebody come in and experience this, you're going to be on the hook for tens of or hundreds of thousands of dollars. You know, if you want my full report and my recommendation, it's only $1,000.
Right.
And you can bring your business up to compliance.
Man, Tony is like, listen,
gangster today.
I'm not saying someone's going to drop a dime in 29 and a half days, but what I'm saying is someone's going to drop a dime in 29 and a half days.
There's no coming to my clinic. That's the only thing.
Right. Wow. Yeah, because what you could do is, listen, an attorney will be notified in 30 to 60 days unless you change it. By the way, here are the names of 3 different contractors who do this. And you can stay.
Oh, that's where you can get paid too. You can get paid for those referrals to the contractors.
Yeah, my strong safety, my backup is the attorney, but my linebacker is. Do you want to get in? Do you want to get in compliance? Get on this guy's waiting list, and he can turn your bathroom into from non-ADA compliant to compliant.
But in the real world, a lot of these business owners already have probably a contractor or a buddy who's a contractor, whatever. So you give them the 3 referrals. Maybe you get paid for those contractor referrals, but they're not going to necessarily always pick those 3 referrals.
Right. But what Tony's saying there is, hey, I did my assessment. To unlock the assessment, you pay me. Because you could send the contractor in there, and the contractor's like, what do you want? And he's like, the guy said we were out of code. Oh, I don't know. I don't know what the code is. Great. To unlock it's why when you buy a house, you pay for what? An inspection. I want to know. Give me the dirty little secrets. But what he's doing here is he's moving the inspection. They don't know. They're not selling their house, but people are using the bathroom or trying to get into a facility, and he's moving you're selling inspections to people who didn't know they needed one.
Yeah, the lawyer approach is the one that's going to it's going to cause the most amount of movement.
The Peace Corps Gene therapists, I just heard several heads explode. And I agree. Even I was like, ooh, man, that's cold, bro.
So let's think of parting shots. You guys think about it. I'm just going to say, going back through the episode, you know, thankfully there were things, 3 heads are better than 1. We threw a couple ideas out there. Like, could I hire a technician to go in the field, to go to the patient's home, to bring the vestibular first headset to the patient while I remain remote, which allows me to exponentially clone myself, increase, you know, my time, like whatever you want to say. We see that opportunity. We see the opportunity with somebody who understands ADA compliance, leveraging that knowledge in an ethical or less than ethical way. There's still so many hidden opportunities, dark corners for us to make money with the knowledge and the experience we have. That's my parting shot.
Right. So go ahead, Dave. I got one too.
So before a parting shot, just like even with x-ray techs and MRI techs, like they do have to kind of maneuver or move a patient or client around different positions. And sometimes those folks have fractures or, very involved medical conditions. So
Sure.
Tony's idea of having a unlicensed but trained individual do the vestibular diagnostics, and then the OT or PT can look at your vestibular first video later, and they're kind of like the therapist radiologist version.
Sure.
I think that's something for sure to explore. Going back, I would say parting shot. I like finding ways to get or establish some premium house calls, thinking outside the box. And again, we talked about this before, like packaging it and calling it something, right? Like as opposed to it's a PT home visit or a OT home visit or a house call, because then they're going to say, well, do you take Medicare or do you take my insurance? But again, if you package it, if the messaging, which is very important, the messaging and the wording around it and the offering, and you get this, maybe like a value stack, is a great way, especially for the OTs out there, to think outside the box and get paid what you think you're worth. If you think you're worth $500 or $1,000 an hour, like that's a way to do it.
The only way that model works that Tony suggested, which is, could you have 5 vestibular techs in the field, and then 1 vestibular qualified NCS therapist in the clinic, is if we untie our emotions. That's and I'm telling you this is the thing that that's holding you back is not the difficulty. It's not the website. It's not the program. It's not the thing you don't know how to do. It's the emotion holding you back. That's the reason. My parting shot will be in parallel with all the ideas, which is you can use your familiar skills in unfamiliar places. That's where the magic happens. That's where amazing business opportunities happen. That's when you look backwards. And I'm going to be doing a series on my podcast coming up in September, highlighting PT inventors, PTs who have taken this thing we're talking about and actually gone through the simple but not easy steps of creating an actual product, like Garrett Drumheller with Nordstick, like Scott Dickinson with Next Level, like Jay Deshari with MoboBoard, like Patrick and Alina with Vestibular First. Familiar skills in familiar places get you familiar results. Familiar skills in unfamiliar places get you exceptional results. I don't know why Tony just left, but I think he hated my ideas.
He's still here. Oh, he left the stage. Yeah. No, he bounced. All right.
We'll be back on Thursday with another topic. If you like what you heard, hey, just let us know. Like, listen, we are fragile human beings with egos, and we like just let us know you like the topics, or give us something we haven't talked about before. And we'll see you back on Thursday. Subscribe and like and listen and share and do the whole thing. Dave, have fun on vacation, man. Go back to relaxing.
Thank you. I'll still be here Thursday, man. I miss you guys. I love you. Take care.
Sounds good.